In this video, we're going to talk about starting and operating a Michigan SoilWorks CFT. Now, all vermicomposting operations are different, depending on factors to include climate, space limitations, budget, labor costs, and the demand for finished vermicompost in your local market. To cover all of these topics is beyond the scope of these videos, but what we can do is describe a typical vermicomposting operation, assuming the operator is using a Michigan SoilWorks CFT. When you order your CFT, you're going to receive a PDF that is going to detail a 20-week startup guide that's going to come in really handy after you assemble your machine. This starts by adding several layers of paper above that bottom grating, which will be sent to you with your CFT. This will prevent that initial base layer of bedding from escaping through the bottom grating to the floor below. Over time, the base layer will become moist and slightly compacted. That paper is going to disintegrate, but you're going to find that your bedding is going to stay above that grating. So after you've added those paper layers, you're going to add 6 to 8 inches of a form of bedding, typically something like peat moss, coconut coir, or some other inert form of material. What we're looking for is a material that is hospitable to earthworms, yet devoid of any food value. Because once we add those fresher layers of waste, we want those worms to leave that bedding and move into the layers above. The next step is to add 2 inches of feedstock, typically something like pre-composted food waste or manure. Once that 2-inch layer is added, well, it's time to add worms. You'll want roughly 25 pounds of worms per module, which will give you between 1/2 to 1 pound of composting worms per square foot. And over the next 12 to 14 weeks, you're going to add 1 layer of pre-composted feedstock to your CFT each week. Now, it'd be helpful to stop here and talk about the concept of pre-composting. Most vermicomposting operations that are mid-scale and larger are going to also incorporate some form of hot composting, which stabilizes the organic matter and makes it suitable for introduction to the worms. This pre-composting process typically lasts about 4 to 6 weeks, with elevated temperatures above 131 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to kill pathogens, kill weed seeds, reduce volume, and again, otherwise stabilize that material. And then over the next 12 to 14 weeks, you're going to add a 1-inch layer of that pre-composted feedstock to your CFT each week. A couple times along the way, you're going to do a test harvest to make sure everything is working properly. And the material that comes out is most likely just going to be bedding, which you should just go ahead and put right back into the top of your Michigan SoilWorks CFT. By the end of that 20-week startup process, you're going to be performing production harvests, which are going to yield saleable worm castings. Now, if you're like most operations, you're going to be putting this harvested vermicompost through some form of a screening mechanism. This is going to screen out material that's of larger particle sizes, undigested organic matter, and of course the worms. This is going to leave you with a beautiful screened product that a lot of us call black gold. So let's talk about how we use our Michigan SoilWorks CFT here at the Urban Worm Company. We start with a feedstock of spent brewer's grains and wood chips. We pre-compost this mixture for 4 to 6 weeks to again reduce volume, kill pathogens, and otherwise stabilize the material so it does not risk heating up when it's inside our CFT. Our operation is small and it's simple. During our weekly feeding, we feed manually using buckets. We'd use about 15 heaping 5-gallon buckets per feeding. If we feel we need additional moisture, we're going to add water using a hose on a mist setting to achieve a nice uniform application. We monitor temperatures daily to ensure that we're staying within the acceptable range of 55 to 90 degrees in the vermicompost. At harvest time, we run our motor-driven cutting bar down to one end of the CFT and back to the other. We pull our homemade rolling platforms out from underneath the CFT. And if we think that the material needs to dry a little bit more, we run a fan over the platforms for a couple days. When it's time to screen, we manually load our material into a trommel harvester. Once the harvest is complete, we manually bag the product and we sell in anywhere from 2 to 5 to 10 pound increments, and we also sell in bulk to local customers. Between setup, feeding, monitoring temperatures, watering, and harvesting, I'd say we spend about 4 man-hours a week on our 16-foot Michigan SoilWorks CFT. Because the setup time would be the same for a larger CFT, you would actually be more efficient with a larger unit. So I hope you enjoyed that description of our small to mid-scale commercial operation. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some lessons that we've learned while using our Michigan SoilWorks CFT, which is going to help you as you operate yours. We'll see you then.